I'm a bona fide thrill seeker. I've run with the bulls in Pamplona. I've visited tribes where it's customary to smoke opium. I've been on small plains in countries where people carry on live chickens. But along with thrill comes risk. Like the time I was in a boat that sank in the middle of shark-infested waters, or when I was nearly murdered in Mexico. As I've gotten older, I found myself looking for safer vacation options. I'm a mom and I need to think about my family. It was January and my husband Alex and I wanted to get away for a few days. We contemplated different winter vacation spots and then finally decided on Jackson Hole. I came across an article entitled, "Why You Need to Try Helicopter Skiing This Winter." Oh my gosh, my heart pounded and raced as I read about virgin powder and epic conditions. How fun would that be? Then I remembered our boys and our wonderful little life that I wouldn't risk for any type of adventure. Later, I stumbled upon an opportunity to snowmobile through Yellowstone National Park. It was a 65-mile round-trip tour through Yellowstone, up to Old Faithful, and then back. The trip was described as a true winter wonderland, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It sounded perfect. We would stay in the best hotel in town, eat in foodie-type restaurants, ski for 3 days, and then go on our snowmobile tour. During our 3 days of skiing, Jack, the bartender at the Four Seasons Resort, became very friendly with us. On our last day of skiing, he asked if we were still going on our snowmobile tour the following day. Yeah, of course. Why wouldn't we be? You guys are gonna get slammed with snow. Be careful and watch out for bear number 399. Bear number 399? Yeah, Google it, Jack chuckled. Whatever. Everyone knows that bears hibernate in the winter. The snowmobile company picked us up at our hotel at 5:30 a.m. It was biting cold and windy. We picked up some other snowmobile adventurists and then went to the gear stop where we signed tons of waivers. We suited up in black puffy overalls, heavy downfield jackets, boots, gloves, and helmets. Nick was our guide. He was a Princeton undergrad taking the semester off. He was quick-witted, knowledgeable about Yellowstone, but with a little bit of Ivy League cockiness about him. As we approached our drop-off location, I casually asked Nick about bear number 399. Oh yeah, our ecosystem is so messed up that the bears are coming out of hibernation early and they're pissed. 399 is famous for her threatening size and protective nature with her cubs. But we won't see any bears today, right? Oh, you might, he said. I was getting nervous. The weather seemed to be getting worse. I had never been on a snowmobile, and now bears? Really? Our snowmobiles were covered in snow. We were told to wipe them down, hop on, and start the engine. They were incredibly loud. Alex and I rode tandem. He was the driver, and I sat up, propped up behind him on the back seat. There was a plexiglass front windshield that I quickly learned really only benefited the driver. By the time we were ready to go, our black snowsuits looked white. It was snowing so hard that as we headed off, it was difficult to even see the trail. It was bumpy, and occasionally we would slide off the trail into packed powder. The engine would rev even louder to get through the thick snow. The weather conditions went from dicey to dangerous. I had never been so cold in my life. The exposed strands of my hair were frozen stiff and my lips felt sealed shut. We were in the middle of a blizzard with 2 more hours to go to get to Old Faithful. I tried desperately to find my inner calm. There's a breathing technique that I learned in hot yoga. The idea is only to focus on your breath, thus taking your attention away from everything else. Sadly, this works much better in a steamy yoga studio than on the back of a snowmobile in the midst of an Arctic storm. I squeezed tighter onto Alex's waist and screamed for him to slow down. There were several very narrow bridges on the trail that we had to cross over. There was so much packed snow that the road was actually at the same level as the guardrails. We were crossing over bridges that were 25 feet above rivers of freezing water without any guardrails. These were very slippery slopes that we could have easily slid off of. And that's not far-fetched at all. We actually saw a few snowmobiles upside down on the bank of the river below us. Oh my God. It was all starting to sink in. I bet one of those waivers was in case we flew off the bridge. I wondered what happened to those riders. Did they perish in the water? Did they get eaten by bears? About midway through the trip to Old Faithful, we were to stop at a scenic rest spot. I was really looking forward to getting off that snowmobile. But as we started into the rest area, we flipped our snowmobile. All of a sudden, we were both on the ground. We looked at each other in shock. I was crying. My shoulder hurt really badly. After a very brief stop to check that we were in one piece, Nick decided to push on. Needless to say, the scenic aspect didn't exist with a steady downpour of snow. By the time we got to Old Faithful, it was so cold and windy that the eruption was more like a steam funnel. But it still felt really good to be standing in front of that famous geyser. I was glad we made it. We took pictures and we bonded like a group of survivors. Ours was the last group to leave Old Faithful. The sky was dark with cloud cover and the snow was blinding. Our small group seemed like the only life left in the park. Listen carefully, Nick warned. We need to get back to base safely, but quickly. An accident out here could be life-threatening. I was scared. Would we flip again? Would we fly off the bridge into the river? Would we get frostbite? I prayed like I've never prayed before. I later learned that we were out in the worst winter storm in Yellowstone in 40 years. When we finally arrived back at base, dreams of my warm hotel bed were shattered. We were snowed in. The roads into and out of Yellowstone were closed. Everyone left in the park would be staying overnight in a small meeting room. The park rangers brought us sleeping bags and pillows, and we quickly claimed a small space near the fireplace. I cuddled up tight against my husband. Flashes of the day flickered through my mind. I finally felt warm and secure. As I started to drift off to sleep, I recalled my bucket list of vacation adventures: gorilla trekking in Rwanda, a great white shark expedition in southern Australia. And just then, I pictured this quaint little hotel in the south of France. Now that sounded like the perfect next vacation.